Hello, 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 hello. Here in this series, we're walking through Freedom to Flow, a faith filled journey after 50. Okay. Every, every, every reinvention begins with a yes. Mm, Not the loud yes everyone sees, but the quiet one, that whisper of a yes that scares the dickens out of you. That yes. We're going to get into it right after this. Welcome back to Purpose Over Paycheck with your host, Dr. Lisa. The Midlife Reinvention Movement for women 50 and above, rising in faith, walking in freedom, living in flow, flourishing in every God designed season. Here is where we shift beliefs, we elevate purpose, and of course, we step boldly into our next chapter. What is this? This is purpose. Okay, so we often think faith removes fear, and that's not true. Faith does not remove fear. I know I grew up in the church. I'm ordained clergy. I get it. Um, I had heard for so long that faith and fear cannot occupy the same space. However, having faith does not remove fear, but more often, faith teaches us how to move with fear, despite the fear, in spite of fear, because of fear. That's what faith does. The first yes in any new season of life rarely feels confident. It feels hesitant, tender, sometimes even unreasonable. That's been my experience. That's because fear isn't always a warning. Sometimes it's a signal that something matters. Sometimes it's a signal to let us know that the decision that we're about to make, the bridge that we're about to cross, the path that we're about to take is such that we need to pause, be present to the moment, feel it in our body in order to be able to make that resounding, although may not be loud, right? Yes. In this season of my life, personally, faith didn't hand me a full plan. Mm-mm. It asked me for the first step. And that first step was a doozy. That first step was deciding to retire early, making the decision and actually signing and turning in the paperwork. Scared, beyond scared, right? But even in my fearful state, I signed the paperwork and I sent it off. Didn't mean that faith wasn't present because faith was present. The fact that I was still moving didn't negate the fact that I wasn't fearful, didn't negate the fact that I didn't have a complete plan. I didn't have all of the steps worked out, right? I didn't. Transparent moment. But the faith that I stood on was what facilitated and fostered me saying yes and taking action, even though fear was present. A yes to space, a yes to listening, a yes to movement without guarantees. Faith, fear, and the first yes. I tell you, after that first yes and moving without the guaranteed, yeah, I was going to be retired. Guaranteed what was next for me, I had no clue. None. I had all kinds of ideas running in my mind, but nothing concrete. The fear that I was experiencing wanted clarity. I'm big on clarity. I worked in finance for decades. Nothing is more clear than numbers. The math has to math in order for it to make sense. One plus one is two, two plus two is four. That's all, that's it. So, clarity is a space that I exist in, that is my comfort zone, that is my sweet spot, right? Fear in this instance, in midlife, when we're making these major life changing decisions, I understand fear for me wanted clarity. Faith in me asked for trust. Mm. Asked that I trust the process. Asked that I trust that this is the season for this change and this shift in my life. And I've learned this: the first yes doesn't commit you to the whole journey. Mm. It commits you to obedience in the moment. That first yes for me was just putting in the paperwork, not even recognizing, knowing, understanding, having clarity of all of the next steps that would unfold. Faith doesn't rush the process, it sanctifies the step. Oof. Mm. When we wait for fear to disappear before we move, we often stay stuck in familiar discomfort. I shudder to think right now, today, as I am talking to you, as I'm recording this video, I shudder to think of where I would be, what I would be doing, what my central nervous system, what my cortisol levels would be right now, today, in this moment in time, had I not given and acted on that first yes. Had I not moved out in faith, even when fear was present, to my first yes. I shudder to think. And I'm going to try my best not to get emotional, because the experience that I'm having right now, had I had that clarity, had somebody play the video, had I had the full vision, the full plan and understanding, when I did that first yes, when I acted on that first yes, said that first yes, even though fear was present, but still activating and moving forward in faith, I would not be having the time of my life that I'm having right now. And the peace and the cortisol levels that are normal, and the sleep, my God, the sleep alone was worth that first yes. When we wait for fear to disappear before we move, we often get stuck in familiar discomfort. But when we say yes, even with fear and trembling and trepidation and concern and questions and more concern and more questions. Oh my God. But when we say yes, even in that state of uncertainty and not a full, complete plan, picture, and clarity, we create from the flow to meet us. we create room. We create room for flow to meet us. We create room. Because even for me, even after that first yes, I did not get clarity as to next steps and what I was to do. It was months later, weeks, if not months later. Yeah, it was February, March, April, May. So yeah, it was months later. But when it came, it was freaking amazing. But my yes created room for flow to meet me. Let me invite you to this reflection. In the comments, answer this honestly. What is one small yes you've been resisting or quietly considering? One small yes, not the one you go to the mountaintop and scream, but the one small yes just in your soul that you're grappling with. You don't have to explain the whole story, just name the yes. And if this resonates with you, you know what I'm going to ask you to do. Subscribe. Make sure you turn on a notification. Share this with somebody that you know is in a transition in their life. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a midlife transition like retirement, relationship, identity, just wondering what's next for them. Share this with them. And before we close, let me bless you. May you stop waiting for fear to disappear before you move. May you trust that courage often arrives after obedience. May your faith hold you steady when certainty is absent. May your freedom be born from trust, not force. May your flow meet you in the yes you've been delaying. And may you remember the first yes doesn't need to be loud, it only needs to be faithful. Remember, midlife, it's not a crisis. It's our invitation to reinvention. We're still here, we're still rising, and we're making this next chapter the best one yet. Faith, freedom, flow, flourishing. This is 50 plus reinvented.